Here on the western edge of the United States lies the most bountiful soil in the history of man. This is the land that drew the pioneers, farmers who crossed an entire continent in their search for a better life. This is the land that gave them their reward. From the rich desert soil of Arizona through the rolling wheatlands of Washington, these men formed a vast agricultural empire that is the glory of the American world today. It was here in this land of big crops and few men that the Caterpillar track-type tractor was born. Born to effect an important and everlasting change in the farming methods of the entire world. Invented and developed in California by men who were faced with harvesting the great wheat crops of the 1880s. Their first efforts resulted in the perfection of the horse-drawn combined harvester. In 1886, Holt introduced the first machine to be driven by link belting and sprockets instead of gears. A few years later, he patented the first successful side hill combine. These combines soon spread the fame of California machinery throughout the world. They were built by Caterpillar until 1936, when rights were transferred to Deere and Company, another leader in the development of agricultural equipment. To pull these combines, both Holt and Best began building enormous steam-powered tractors. Weighing about 40,000 pounds, these early models ranged from 40 to 110 horsepower. A round steel drum was suspended in front of the steering wheel to help keep the wheel on top of the ground. Drive wheels averaged about 3.5 feet each, with some going as wide as 18 feet. Although crude by today's standards, these early machines proved so successful that they were soon seen all up and down the West Coast. By the early 1900s, the Holt Company was a fast-growing concern. It was here, on West Aurora Street in Stockton, California, that Benjamin Holt perfected the track-type tractor in 1904. In 1907, the first gasoline-powered models were actually in production. The steering wheel, located far out in front of the tractor, was held over from the old steamers. These earliest units employed a direct drive with one gear forward and one reverse. Like all other Holt tractors, they had individual steering clutches, an early Holt patent, and a primary principle still used in the majority of all track-type tractors manufactured today. The track-type tractor brought about many new methods of farming, but more important, it gave the farmer his most valuable weapon in the age-long struggle and dependence upon nature. No longer was he limited by tired animals when there was work to be done. No longer must he stand idly by and watch his crops ruined because he couldn't get into the fields to work them. Here was a machine that made him master of the soil, a machine that never tired, ready to go any time and any place he chose. Thus, the track-type tractor brought about a new and better way of life for the Western rancher and his family. Other models soon followed. There was the Holt 30, first made in 1912, designed to work the small farms and orchards. Like other Holt models of that time, steering was accomplished by turning a hand wheel. The 30 was built low to the ground to get under and around trees and featured an internal gear drive, fenders over each track, and the driver's seat to the rear. Almost all of the early implements used were designed to work with horses. This sometimes led to sudden and unexpected grief when they failed under the increased pull of the tractor. The need for better cooperation between the tractor and implement manufacturer led eventually to the close association of Caterpillar and Deere. This association between the two leaders in their respective fields was a success from the start and is represented today by the wide network of Caterpillar John Deere dealers throughout the West Coast area. During this same period, the C.L. Best Tractor Company of San Leandro was building track-type tractors very similar to the Holt units. They differed mainly in certain mechanical details, using a differential instead of individual steering clutches, booster steering of the hand-operated wheel, and gear drive instead of chain. One of the most popular of all Best models at that time was the Best 75, first made in 1913. It was also the first of the Best machines to be called the track layer. In addition to its regular chores, it was sometimes called upon to assist another, even more widely known vehicle of that day. Although these tractors were eminently successful, it remained for one further important change to obtain the maximum benefits of the track-type principle. Engineers experimented with the possibility of removing the front steering wheel, and in 1914, the first full track-type tractor was a reality. By eliminating the front wheel, all of the tractor's weight was carried on the tracks, thus allowing a greater proportion of drawbar pull. Although this design had many advantages over the tiller wheel type, its manufacture was temporarily limited to the smaller size tractors. The bigger tiller wheel tractors were soon called upon for the most critical duty of their entire career. World War I had started in Europe, and this country was busily engaged in extensive training maneuvers. Holt tractors were soon being tested before Army officials. General Pershing saw them perform on the Mexican border. On the basis of their test performances, they were quickly recruited by the Quartermaster Corps for hauling supply trains. During the Mexican border skirmishes in 1916, Holt's 75s were hauling supplies through the famed Pinto Canyon. Army engineers had declared the shortcut impassable for a tractor train because of its steep grades, sharp turns, rocky passes, and deep sand. But the big Holt tractors made regular round trips with loads of 20 to 40 tons. They were quickly adopted as standard engineer equipment, an honor consistently retained by Caterpillar. During the war period, the Holt plant at Peoria delivered its entire production to the war effort. Representatives of all the Allied governments came to witness the spectacular performance. They had heard credited to these revolutionary prime movers. In addition to the outstanding work they did themselves, these same machines inspired the development of the British tank, a weapon that turned the tide of the war. Some of the machines developed were later made into peacetime models, such as the T-11, which after the war exchanged its gun carriage for a plow and became the 5-ton. As the war ended, the Holt Company was proud of the 10,000 tractors delivered to the Allies and of the worldwide reputation they now enjoyed. Immediately after the war, in 1919, Best introduced their most famous model, the Best 60. This tractor featured anti-friction bearings throughout the transmission and was the first user of such bearings in a track-type tractor. The 60 also discarded chilled iron track rollers and cast tracks in favor of drop forgings. In 1921 came the Best 30, a smaller version of the tremendously successful 60. These two models played an important part in further establishing the track-type tractor on the West Coast. They were built by Best until 1925, when Caterpillar Tractor Company was formed. When Caterpillar was incorporated, the Best San Leandro and the Holt Peoria plants were retained as manufacturing centers. The Holt Stockton plant was devoted exclusively to the manufacture of Holt combines under the name of the Western Harvester Company. The joining of Best and Holt was a success from the beginning, as it combined under one company the many exclusive features and vast manufacturing experience of the two pioneers in the track-type fields. Caterpillar started operations with 5 tractor models. 3 were of Holt design, the 2-ton, the 5-ton, and the 10-ton. The 5 and 10-ton were dropped in 1926. while the 2-ton, shown pulling a Holt combine, was made through 1928. The other 2 holdovers were the 60 and the 30, both of best design. These 2 models, with many successive improvements, were continued in the Caterpillar line until 1931. Then in 1927 came the 20, the first tractor to be completely designed and built by the new company. The year 1928 introduced the 10, the smallest tractor ever built by Caterpillar. To adapt this model for row crop cultivation, a special high clearance arrangement was added. Thus, the 10 gave many owners their first contact with the year-round advantages of the track-type tractor. To test the endurance of these tractors, several trial runs were instituted. This 10 is finishing a run of 20 days and 20 nights, a record at that time. The trip ended on the campus of Oregon State College, where the tractor was met by one of the original covered wagons. In 1929, the 15 was introduced. The 15 was a slightly bigger brother of the 10, being alike in design and appearance, but had 5 more horsepower. The year 1931 brought 3 new models. One was the 25. Another was the 50, which soon became very popular in the western wheat fields for pulling combines. But the year 1931 will be best remembered for the announcement of the most revolutionary feature ever introduced in a track-type tractor, the Caterpillar diesel engine. This is number 1C2, the first diesel tractor ever used for agricultural work. It is still working today, owned by Clarence Danielson. Its home is Woodland, California. The on-the-job record of this machine, now almost 20 years old, serves as the most positive example of the high quality and precision manufacture of the company that made it. Number 1C2 and the many models that preceded it are the direct forebearers of the current line of Caterpillar track-type tractors. Today there are 5 models representing the finest equipment ever built in the long history of Caterpillar. All of them, from the D8 to the D2, are built with the accumulated experience of over 46 years in the track-type field. The know-how resulting from this unequaled experience adds a certain extra value to each tractor made today. An extra value that can't always be shown in print, but being built in is present in every tractor that leaves the plant. Producing the best possible equipment that men, machines, and experience can build has become a tradition with Caterpillar, a tradition that was born in the West.